So, overcoming victim mentality. Today we have the first part. Last week, you may remember I gave a few evening classes on false ego. You remember that? Spoke about what is false ego, according to Bhagavad Gita. That what's the result of acting with false ego? We discussed that. This false ego is technically the identification with the body. How we identify with the body. But we know from Bhagavad Gita, Mamaibam Suchivelake Shiva Buddha Sanatana. We are spirit souls, part and parcels of Krishna. And we have learned last week that we are not the doer. The soul is only doing things by desiring. And the rest is material nature, under the control of the super soul. There were 5 factors of action. Who knows these 5 factors? So Krishna says that one who does not consider these 5 factors of action is not very intelligent. So we should know them. Yes?
Desire.
Desire, that is the karta, that's the doer. That's the soul, does things by desire. So that's one of the 5. And that's the only thing the soul does. That's the only thing the soul does. The other 4 factors are the super soul, and the super soul controls the other 3 factors. What are the other 3 factors? Instrument, the karanam, the senses. That, please. No. That's are the subjects of Bhagavad Gita. That's a whole lot of things. No. The body, adhishtanam, the gross body, and the subtle body, yes. All the desires and all the endeavors that come up into the mind. That's controlled by the super soul. Bhagavad Gita here, 18:14. Adhishtanam tata karta. Adhishtanam 18:14. Adhishtanam tata karta karanam sapitah vidam. Vividas sapitak shista daivam shaibatra panshanam. Almighty aunt, Arjun learned from me of the 5 factors which bring about the accomplishment of all action. These are declared in Sankhya philosophy to be the place of action. Place of action, that's the body. The kshetra also. Yes. The performer, the soul, the senses, the endeavor, and the super soul. So what happens? I desire to move my hand. What's happening? After that, I desire it. What's happening? Krishna notices that desire, the super soul. And he checks That's what the soul desires, but does the soul have the karma to do that? Does it deserve that? Otherwise, the soul will not do it. The super soul will not act. Then, according to the desire of the living entity, the soul wants to move his hands, and then the super soul, he controls the body, the senses. He makes the hand moving. In fact, that is an abbreviated session of explanation. I tell you the whole story. Well, more elaborated. So Krishna notices the desire. The soul wants to move his hand, his left hand. And in the soul is in the heart of the living entity. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Ritisayunam Tishtat is there. Super soul takes the phone and calls the demigods. And he asks the demigods to have a meeting and to discuss with the demigod who is responsible for the muscles of the arms and the other for the hairs and so on, to make a plan to move that arm. And they have a meeting, how I go and how will we cooperate together and combine these energies. And then they call back to the super soul in the heart. And the super soul said, hello, yeah. Then we say, we have a plan. We have a plan. And then the super soul in the heart said, execute it. And then the hand moves. But that's going on all in less than a fraction of a second. And we think, oh, I've moved my hand. So Krishna says then 2 verses further. Tatraivam sadhikartaram atmanam kevalam tuya pashyanta krita buddhitvan na pasyati durmatihi. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. So, false ego means I'm the controller, everything depends on. But not everything depends on me. But not much depends on us. Because if everything would depend on us, then all our plans would be fulfilled. Is that the case? Everyone gets always what he desires. No. Anyway, so we think we are the doer, but Krishna does things. But constantly in this world, we are thinking we are the doers. And that's because of our mind. Our mind is at this position. But now we will conduct leads, because many times we do things and our plans do not work out. And we start to blame everyone. It's this person's fault, or yes, the entire world is against me. That's the victim mentality, and that's what we will speak about. It's what I'm saying in this, explaining in this seminar, does not come from me. It comes from Krishna, who speaks in the 11th canto to Buddha. So I explained already a lot of the false ego before, but without this preliminary knowledge, it's difficult to understand this seminar. Because this seminar is the 11th canto. Normally you must have read the first 10 cantos to understand. But I will try my best to explain it in a way that we all benefit from it. So we have here the workings of the false ego. It's based on chapter 22, the first canto. Krishna explains in that chapter, the soul is not connected to the body. Yet it's somewhat connected due to which the soul experiences various emotions. In the Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, verse 30, Vakrichayvasa karmani kriyamanani sarvasa yapasa pashati tatatma akartaram sapashati. When we can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Can someone repeat what I've read, explaining your own words? Okay. When you can see that the activities of the body, we get it? Seeing activities of the body. This is done by material nature, verse says. It's created by material nature. And the soul has nothing to do with it. Nothing. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. But some way or another, we are identifying ourselves. We are identified with all these activities performed by the body and by the mind. The mind is also the body. So Krishna explains the soul is not connected to the body, no connection, but it's somewhat connected. How is this connection somewhat made? How do we make the connection? Although there is no connection. That the mind is the body, but how do we make the connection with the mind? Yeah. Chanting, that's good on to disconnect. By chanting Hare Krishna, we realize this point that we are not the doer. And we get rid of false ego. That's devotional service. But the soul, how is the soul somewhat connected? Yeah, false ego, but my question is, how does that work? How does the soul connect with that false ego? You are blaming the super soul for that. No. The super soul, that the point is, let's go back to the basics. What is the symptom of the soul in the body? That's Desire is the activity of the soul. The symptom is consciousness. How do you know that the soul is in a body? There is consciousness. A living body minus consciousness is a dead body. Right? So it's consciousness. By that we know. And desire is the activity of the soul. That's the only thing we do. The rest is done by the super soul. If you have material desires, then the super soul will act. It's like pushing a button. Activate nature by our material desires. So how does the soul make that connection? If you know these two things, by controlling the mind, we can get rid, we can stop this connection. That's the opposite. But how do we make the connection? It's by pollution of our consciousness. That pollution of our consciousness creates false ego, the idea that I'm the body. And what is this pollution of consciousness? The material modes of nature. Bhagavad Gita, passion, ignorance. That's how the consciousness becomes polluted. And that pollution makes us identify with the body from their false ego. Is that clear? Did we get that point? So the soul is not connected. We think we are connected by pollution of the consciousness of the soul. Normally we have pure consciousness. The soul in its original state is pure consciousness. How is the pure consciousness called of the soul? Krishna consciousness. That's our pure consciousness. But that consciousness is covered by the modes. And the mode of passion makes you identify with the body. And the mode of ignorance makes you dull. Yes. We desire, that's right. We desire to enjoy this world. And by that desire, we come in contact with the modes of nature. And that desire can, because this pollution is there, it's not that I take birth and then I desire and then the contamination comes. No, not at all. Your body that you get is the result of the contamination of your consciousness in previous lives. And your action that you have done in false ego. If we act in false ego, you get reactions. And that's the whole thing in Bhagavad Gita. But first Krishna says, do everything as an offering for Krishna, and not for yourself, not for the false ego of what we think the self, the body. So therefore Krishna says the soul is not connected, but it is somewhat connected because consciousness is polluted. And what does the mode of passion do? Krishna speaks about lust is the enemy number one. And what's the result of lust? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, who knows the verse? Avidam jnanam ekena jnanina nitya karamana kamarupena kamtya dushpranam malena cha. Avidam, means covering. It covers what? Avatam Jnanam Etana, your eternal knowledge, your Krishna consciousness covers. By that, you think you are the body. It's very strong. That it's so strong that everything what comes into the mind, we think I'm the feelings, I'm all my thinking, feeling, willing of the mind. That's what I am. Good. Next point. So how do we understand that what we experience, that we are not doing that? Interesting. Here we explained the basis just about that in Bhagavad Gita. This is a verse which explains this further. Nrityato kayata pasham yadaivanukachitam evam bhakti gunam pasham aniyo pyanukayate. Just as one may imitate persons whom one sees dancing and singing, similarly the soul, although never the doer of material activities, becomes captivated by the material intelligence and thus is forced to imitate its qualities. So that means we experience happiness and distress. This is the happiness and distress of the body, not of us. The soul has nothing to do with this happiness and distress of the body. But we identify with it. Because where do we experience this happiness and distress? We experience it in the mind, right? In the mind you experience. And we think that's my happiness and distress. We identify with it. The mind is like a cinema. The whole drama goes on in our mind. And we identify with it. It's like if we go in a cinema hall and we see a film on the screen, then there's humoristic things, then dramatic things happens, people start to cry, and then so many moods, and we become absorbed in it, and we identify with it. But in a cinema hall, there you can somewhat say and withdraw yourself, it's just a film. But the mind is different. You cannot go out of the cinema hall of your mind. You are bound with it. That you are on the chair in the cinema hall, and you cannot go out. It's still, yeah. So, and just like an audience experiences the emotions of the actor, the soul experiences different emotions produced into the mind. And we go with these emotions and we think that's our reality. Someone dies and we were very much attached to it. We go into a depression and we cry and so on. But factually, we don't have anything to do with it. It's just all on the bodily level. So we become a slave of the mind. And with the more we are polluted by passion and ignorance, the more we become slave. Therefore, if we perform Krishna consciousness, we have a good sadhana, then we become purified from passion and ignorance. Little by little, the most of passion and ignorance goes away, and we become situated in goodness. It may take many years, but that's our endeavor in Krishna consciousness, to purify our heart. And then we get the power. If you have a good sadhana, you have the power not to identify with the mind, to say no to the mind. That is our austerity. We must tolerate the mind, but not follow the mind. You can only do that if you have spiritual power. And what's the principle? Matra spashtikantya sudasana sukadakada agama panina nityastamstadikshasvara. We must tolerate happiness and distress which comes up into the mind. Like one tolerates winter and summer heat and winter cold. Yamina Flatatante, Kepo Shampoo Shashpa, Sam Sukadram Itiram, Sam Sukadram, Yume Tatvaya Kalpate. Krishna says one can tolerate his happiness and distress of the mind when he's ready for liberation. That's Krishna consciousness. Those who can do that are Paramahamsas, who are perfect in it. And we will speak of this in a very practical way already. Tomorrow and the last day, we will see other case studies from the Bible. Now, the soul witnesses what's going on in the mind and identify with it, with this performance on the stage. So that's important here to understand that the soul is practically only the witness. We are looking in the cinema of the mind. But we identify with it. That's the error we make. But we identify with it under the influence of passion and ignorance. So that identification with the mind is a problem. The liberated person is explained in Bhagavad Gita 270. Apo yamanam nachana pavishkam spaimutrana pavishan satvat tatyam kamayat. Forget the third line. 271, 70. Tatvat kamayam pavishanti sarvesha santi magnamutinakam. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires. Desires pop up in our mind. And many of these desires are not coming from the soul. It's a super soul who brings them in our mind. Sometimes desires pop up in the mind. Where are these coming from? Desires in the mind can come from three sources. Can come from the soul, can come from previous lives, and the super soul brings it into the mind. And can come from the environment. If you are in an environment where there are sinful activities going on, people drink and so on. Things will come up in your mind if you stay too long in that environment. But if you are Krishna conscious, you are protected against that. But mostly desires come from our previous life. Desires from previous lives, they pop up in the mind. Why does Krishna bring that in our mind? Because we desire these things in our previous life. What's typical for material desires? What is the result of trying to fulfill it? Dayate Vishyapam Sansangas Desvajayate Sanghasayate Gamakama Bodha Vijayate. What does that mean? This verse.
Contemplation of the object of the senses comes attachment, from attachment comes lust, from lust comes anger.
Right, it ends up in frustration. We think we are going to enjoy this. In Krishna says, so we meditate on something, dayate, I'm going to enjoy it. But then when expectations come into the mind, I'm going to enjoy it. But when the enjoyment comes, it's not what expected, and we become angry. So it doesn't work out. So we tried in our previous life, and Krishna in our heart knows that, oh, he desired in our, he puts the desire again in our mind and say, you desired in your previous life, so you can try again. Okay? So what does the devotee do? As such a desire pops up in his mind, and he has a good sadhana, what will he do? What does he do with the desire, material desire, what comes up in his mind? Yeah. That's good, but then still, what will you do with the desire? Good. Checking, will that please Krishna? Does Krishna wants me to do that? And if the answer is no, what's going to happen? The devotee will not do it. Right? But the condition for that is that you are not thinking that you are the mind, that you are the observer of the mind. If you think you are the mind, there's no question. You cannot say, no, I'm the mind. So you can only do that if you are the observer, if you can see what's going on. That power you get by chanting Hare Krishna, by following the regulative principles of engaging in devotional service. But otherwise, that means only devotees can do that by that spiritual power. Now, everyone who identifies with the mind is a madman. So who is mad? Who is not mad? Only the pure devotees. Devotees are not mad. All the others have the madness for identifying with the mind. So the mind is like a cinema. Maya is our mind. Maya is in our mind. And what's the function of Maya? To keep you in this material world. And she will engage you in raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion. And the more you engage in this attachment and aversion, the more you suffer, and the more you stay here. So Krishna says in 334 in Bhagavad Gita, give up this raga, dvesha, attachment and aversion. Because they are paripantina, they are obstacles on spiritual advancement, to make spiritual advancement. this is very essential knowledge. That, otherwise, we chant Hare Krishna, and then afterwards, we again identify with the mind. So we have to be very careful. Of course, we will always identify somewhat with the mind. So strong. Krishna says, Mama Maya Durachya. This Maya is Durachya. It's very difficult to overcome. Très dur. Durachya. Dur. Very difficult to overcome. But one who surrenders unto me, who follows these instructions of Bhakti Yoga and follows Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna says, Maya Medam Trante, easy to overcome. So we overcome this by becoming the observer of the mind, and not just become a slave of the mind. That's very important. So, good. So sometimes we may want to walk out, but we are sitting here feeling changed, helpless till the movie ends. The movie ends when your life ends. Then next movie, next time. But, so we have to, yes. Now there are three aspects of false ego. That's what I further want to discuss today with you. This is a verse from Lord Kapilladev's teachings of the third canto, which explains these three aspects of false ego. So good to understand this false ego so that we know how we are trapped in this world by the false ego. Artritvam karanatvam cha gayatvam sete lakshanam santakhora vimudatvam itivasya ankete. This false ego is characterized as the doer, as an instrument, and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, according to how it is influenced by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Influenced, if this false ego is it when it's in goodness, serene, in passion, active, and in ignorance it's dull. But we can be false ego means the doer. We identify as a doer. We identify as an instrument or as an effect. Now, we are going to explain that. Don't worry if you don't understand it. But it's these three first words here. Kartritvam, Karanatvam, and Karyatvam. Doer, instrument, and effect. Now first. So these are Kartritvam means being the doer. I'm going to achieve this. That I'm going to enjoy that or sufferance. So it's a general identification with the body, which happens to the mind, because the mind the enjoyment comes into the mind. That this enjoyment and this suffering is only a concoction of the mind. It's not, because the soul cannot suffer. The suffering is experienced in the mind, the happiness is experienced in the mind. But by that false ego, we think it's our suffering, it's our happiness. But it's not by just understanding that we have a switch and we switch off the false ego. No. Switching off the false ego means your heart must become purified completely. Then you switch off. If you come to pure Krishna consciousness. But if the more the heart is contaminated, the more we identify with the cinema of the mind. And Karanatva, identification with how we view ourselves. I'm a serious person, or I'm this or that. I'm a doctor, I'm a specialist in this or that. I'm a good singer. And then Karyatva, identification with the experiences of the body, the experience coming to the mind. Now we will look at these three more in detail to understand them. These are three aspects of false ego. So, Karketva. That means Krishna explains that further in the 11th canto. We transfer the quality of action to something that is not acting. And Krishna gives the example of a tree. You see a tree there, and you see the reflection in the water. But the water is moving. It's look like the tree is moving. But it's not moving. So in the same way, the soul thinks, I'm doing it. But it's a material nature that acts. The soul is not acting. So, in other words, this makes us think we are the doer, and that's the basic quality of false ego. We think we are doing things, and everything depends on us. Yeah. Like I said, yeah, it's difficult to understand that I only desire to move my hand, and then it moves. And I'm not doing, I'm only desiring. Do we think like that? No. Because the experience is different in the mind. But we are not this mind. This experience in the mind is not us. It's cheating us. So that's the first aspect. So this is, you can just remember, that makes us think we are the doer of things. But we are the doers, but only in terms of desire. Kartritva. So the trees are still, but due to illusion, we see them moving. So that's still the first point, but that is another example. Similarly, in the material world, the soul is not acting, the body is acting, but the soul assumes the quality of action of the body. So we think, I'm doing it. So, from a Krishna conscious viewpoint, if you think that you are doing things, then we know the soul is only desiring. And when things will happen, it's not under our control. It's in Krishna's control. That when I decide to move my hand, and my hand moves is one example. But we know we don't control our heartbeat, we don't control our digestion, we don't control all the cells in our body, that we don't control that the body gets old and we cannot doing anything. So all these things are clearly not under our control, but also the moving of the hand is not under our control. The devotee knows that. And therefore, whatever he does, whatever a devotee does, first, if he wants to do something, he prays to the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna. If you want Krishna, if you so desire, it will happen. That the devotee knows that it doesn't just depend on me. Arjuna had also that realization. When Krishna left the planet, he remembered how Krishna empowered him so much, because he lost all his power when Krishna was gone. That during the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna was the real doer. That because the super soul is his expansion. But the second aspect is, that's also still the first aspect. I'm the doer. This quality implies that we see ourselves as doers, achievers. I'm the hero, and I'm the victim. So that's two ways of getting the attention of others. I'm the hero, I'm the victim. This too. That is false ego in action. So, yes. But if someone does that, we can understand it is Maya. That this person thinks he's really the truth, and the victim. This person did that to me. This is both. Yes. Yes, it is. I'm acting as the hero. That and I'm a victim. Yeah. So I've done this, and now I become a victim. From that we can understand that someone acts as the doer just by presenting himself. But being a victim is much easier and common, more common. One doesn't have to do anything. You just say it's the other's fault. You just point out all the problems with others, and one becomes a victim. See how they treated me badly. Now the second point, Karanatvam, that there we will start to qualify, to identify ourselves with our material qualities. That because we get a body with certain qualities. Some are intellectuals, some are so-called scholars, and some are very good in business. That yeah, so many qualities. And we start to identify with that, with our situation and the modes that one sees. One thinks I'm a very serious person. I'm determined. That I'm creative. I'm a calm person. I'm like this, that, and so on. That so we identify with the material qualities. That's not fun. We always attribute the quality of the mind to ourselves, keep us bound to the body and its experience. If we think in terms, I'm very sad, if we repeat it to ourselves a number of times, we become that quality. And we see the world through the lens of this quality. That we have that also, like we see also qualities in others which are not there. We are being hurt by someone. And then after that, whatever we hear from this person comes in a bad light in our mind. And we paint pictures in our mind that it's the qualities. This is the working of the mind. It's very dangerous. So in 11, 22, 55, 54, 55, the Bhagavatam, Krishna gives the following example. Like the Earth's appearance of spinning, due one spinning his eyes around. So it means sometimes we are becoming sick and we see everything start to turn around us. Like we are drunk. It starts spinning. And we imagine the earth is spinning. So in the same way, we are identifying with all these emotions in the mind, feeling that, and that's me. That so holding is the quality of the eyes. Krishna gives this example because we see the whole world through the eyes of our qualities. So whatever we see in this world is through the subjective mind. And we accept that. But this is not reality. Nothing to do with it. It's our perception. Through the mind, it's the perception of the mind. And we identify with it. When we interact with these qualities, we are more or less reinforcing our false ego. And we become like that. We cannot break free. That it disempowers us completely. And then the first aspect, Karyat Fam. Identifying with the experience of this body, just like a dream, one may experience one may experience suffering when there is none. So in the mind, we connect with things and we become attached to it. I just bought a new car. This is my new car. And I'm proud of it. It's mine. The mind becomes very attached to it. But then someone makes some scratches on it and damages your car, and we become angry, and just by thinking of it, we suffer. So there's nothing to do with it. That's all the mind which is attached. That we identify with this mind and with this suffering in the mind. The soul cannot suffer material things. It's an experience in the mind. And we identify with the mind. We suffer. And that should be understood. When I was 5 years old, that I had a lot of toothache. And that's heavy toothache, I remember. But then I had such day that I had a heavy toothache. And another friend, 5 years old, came to play, and we were absorbed in playing with little soldiers. Anyway, and very intense play. And during the play, I had no toothache. But the little friend went away, and the toothache came back. Why? Because when I was very active, my mind was busy with the play. But then, afterwards, the play's finished, and we concentrate again on the mind. And we suffer. But a Krishna conscious person has the power not to identify with the mind. The more you identify with the mind, the more you suffer. That it's the experience in the mind is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. That like you offer sweet rice to Gaunitai, and then afterwards you honor, you eat the sweet rice, and you enjoy it. But then you go to sleep, and you have a good dream. In your dream, you offer sweet rice to Gaunitai, and then you eat it, and you feel the same enjoyment in your dream. So it's all an experience in the mind that we identify with. And that is the karyatva, to identify with the emotions and the suffering due to attachments. Because all this suffering is actually not there, because it's because of our attachment, and eventually the mind we suffer. So that is false ego, and the results of false ego. Krishna gives 3 examples for us to understand the ways in which we identify with material existence, which is what's going on into the mind. And this identification keeps us in this bond. That is our bondage. But how to get free from it? And that is to end today's session. Krishna gives a very radical and drastic statement. Even though neglected, insulted, ridiculed, and envied by bad men, or even though repeatedly agitated by being beaten, tied up, or deprived of one's occupation, spat upon or polluted with urine by ignorant people, one who desires the highest goal in life should, in spite of all these difficulties, use his intelligence to keep himself safe on the spiritual platform. And that is what we will discuss tomorrow evening. The mind may go to all these things, and we get all this suffering into the mind, but we should keep ourselves safe on the spiritual platform and not identify with the mind, from the observer. It's like you have a caravan of different vehicles passes by, and the dogs are barking, barking. But the caravan will pass. So all this happiness and distress in the mind, we just leave that there. And we have no time for it. We are busy with Krishna in our mind. We are on the spiritual platform, always man mana, thinking of Krishna. We keep ourselves safe. But how to do that, we will discuss that tomorrow. That's the most important part. Yes, yeah. 5 minutes later.
You are right. My question is, can we be in Krishna acting on the platform and Krishna consciousness but inside not thinking of Krishna? And we're kind of cheating ourselves in that way.
That Krishna consciousness means connection with Krishna. Like you go to the airport, your spiritual master arrives there, you are driving the car. Spiritual master sits in the car. You are driving to the temple, right? Are you forgetting that your spiritual master sits in the back of the car while you are driving? No. Okay. So you must always be connected with Krishna. So this connection is there, is active. You will remember, yeah, is there, that's what I'm doing, that's the purpose of what I'm doing. So you must be connected always in that way. Yes.
To understand this main idea is that our minds are need to control, to identify it. The question is like, how do we understand what is created by our mind, or like as we perceive experience something that just our mind, or how to de-identify with our mind, or in other words, for example, if you have some conflicts with some persons, right? How do we know? Does Krishna care about our connections? Is it just our mind, or for example, our apparatus really? Why is it, if they are in mind, why does it connect so deeply what? So I guess my question is, how do we understand what is just the mind concoction, what's about?
Certainly, it's all immaterial nature. It's all Maya. But your attitude towards to what is going on makes you responsible or not responsible. That is the point. So we have to see from situation to situation but mostly we should, if enemies and friends are involved, then it is Maya, that duality. But that does not mean that we must say, oh, it's all in the mind. That's another thing. That we have to follow the rules of morality and so on. But internally, we must keep ourselves safe on the Krishna conscious platform and not go into the duality of the mind. Then we are lost. And we will see examples in the next days of that we will speak about Avanti Brahman, we will speak about Shabbat, that they kept themselves safe on the spiritual platform. By studying their lives, we can understand something there. Because we think, yes, we are the controller, and yes, I try to solve that problem here, but material problems cannot be solved. Yeah.
So you mentioned that this our lifetime is a movie, next lifetime, another movie starts. You also mentioned that some desires stay away from past lives. So I guess it's a karmic mechanism, right?
Yeah.
I was because I was telling others like these three types of desires that you mentioned. One is from past lives, the other is environment, and the this desire for some life. I was wondering, this desire from past life, in absolute sense, does it come from our desire to enjoy separated competition?
Yeah, sure.
So that's initial desire.
That's the definition, not real desire. It's not real desire. But the good thing is, it pops up in your mind if you become a devotee and you recognize, oh, I don't want it. This is not real desire. It goes away forever. That's the power of Krishna consciousness. And we become purified of that. Because these desires, this attachment, these desires, these are our anarthas. Factually our anarthas. Reactions from previous lives, and we have to get rid of it. Yes, please.
The root of spiritual master in life is to redirect desire and action in the mind of the disciple or Christian.
Yeah.
It's really what the disciple is going through, and if the disciple is surrendered, we can ask for guidance, and spiritual master guidance avoid the path he should do. This was the path he should do.
Yeah. That's a function of, that's one of the important functions of spiritual master. To advise his desire, to advise his disciple to engage him properly in devotional service, so that he does not engage himself in the fulfilling the desires that come up into his mind. Good. Thank you. Yes, Mother.
Two questions. This question is really beyond our comprehension. There's many quotes about very contemporary
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, maybe one question at a time. So the first question about the subtle body. The subtle body, the subtle material body has been created when we came to the material world. And it remains with us until we leave. But the subtle body is purified. And when it's become purified, it becomes spiritual. And that perfect, the subtle body is three elements: intelligence, buddhi, manas, the mind, thinking, feeling, willing, and the false ego. The false ego exists only because of the intelligence, and the mind is contaminated by material desires. Now the intelligence, or is the mind purified? Krishna says, "Man mana, think of me." That's how we purify. Hearing about Krishna, and that makes us think of Krishna. That and devotional service makes us think of Krishna. How does the intelligence become purified? It's by transcendental knowledge and realization of this transcendental knowledge. So we have to hear transcendental knowledge. And of course, transcendental knowledge can also be given to the heart when we perform the devotional service. But this is purified by transcendental knowledge. And thus a process of spiritualization of the subtle body. So the subtle body does not disappear, it comes back to its original spiritual position and is therefore in that sense eternal. Yeah. We come to our real equilibrium. Can you speak a little louder? I understand that touch and aversion, yes.
So how do we, because I'm trying to think also some cute examples and how does that maybe it's a growth this is better. So okay, just
I'm getting engaged. No, but there are two different things here. So you have what is the cause of attachment and aversion? It's lust, the desire to enjoy. And by that, we come to the point I'm the body, and what's good for the body, I accept. That gives pleasure, and what gives pain, I don't want. So, and that makes the identification with the body stronger. But Haridas Thakur, he was thinking in terms of raga and dvesha not on a material platform. And we must all do like Haridas Thakur. We accept what's favorable for devotional service, and we reject what's unfavorable. So he told the prostitute, you sit here and here, because that's favorable for your devotional service. So that's on the spiritual platform. That's good. There's in Nectar of the Instruction, we have first the second verse, Atyara Payasasya Prajalpaniyamaga, 6 things favorable and 6 things unfavorable for devotional service. And then 6 things favorable. Utsa Nishyadaya Tatat Kama Pavartana. So we must learn what's favorable and unfavorable for our devotional service. And that's a part of the process of Saranagati, of surrender to Krishna. So that's important. But Raga and Dvesha is on the material platform. That's a whole different platform caused by lust, where I identify more and more with the body. Okay, good. We will stop here. Otherwise, it becomes too late. And tomorrow we will have our second part, and we will concentrate on that point, keeping ourselves on the spiritual platform, and it will be more practical. We will hear histories and so on. This was a heavy part of those beginning, but it's necessary. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Bye.
Yeah.